Next, with immense respect, I invite our Suhas Inabda, our chief guest. About him, Suhas Inabda is an electrical engineer with masters in financial management. He has over 30 years of work experience in manufacturing industries and facilities management in India and UAE. Currently, he is working as head of planning and technical support in VASL Properties, a leading real estate developer in Dubai. He has also worked as faculty for 1 year in Engineering Staff College of India, Hyderabad, and conducted some short-term courses on specialized subjects in electrical engineering and general management. During his career in manufacturing industries, he has worked in 5 different states: Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Maharashtra. On the personal front, his passion is to write motivational fiction stories and has published 8 books so far. These books are available on Amazon. So, with immense respect, I invite Suhasar for the inaugural address. Sir, please.
Thank you very much, Suprabha, for that very wonderful introduction about me. Good morning to all of you. Respected Chairman, Mr. V.K. Shamsuddin, Principal Dr. Jose K. Jacob, and all other participants. I welcome you all for this international conference on emerging trends in science, engineering, and technology 2020. I am deeply honored and I feel really privileged to be a part of this function and be with you today this morning. In the next 2 days, we shall be seeing a very enlightening and resourceful interaction between various research scholars, academicians, and industry experts on the modern trends in technology which shall be shaping the future. I also believe that there are 50 papers being presented in various streams by the eminent research scholars and faculty members. I compliment them and I congratulate them for this because submitting a paper in a conference is not an easy task. It requires a lot of effort, hard work, research, and analysis. So wish you all the best. In also in the coming days, you will hear a lot of terms such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, neural networking, blockchain, BIM, and whatnot. Everything you will hear. I will be also talking on some of them. However, I shall be focusing more from the application perspective because I am from industry side. Let us start with the basic definition of science, engineering, and technology. A systematic study of any specific subject is science. And when you do the analysis of it by using certain questions, such as what, why, who, when, where, and how, then it becomes engineering. And when, with this knowledge and the analysis, you develop a product, system, services, some kind of a system process, then it becomes technology. Now, the entire field of science, engineering, and technology was much simpler, or rather, relatively simpler, till 1990 when the IT revolution took place, the information technology revolution. In science, we had the physics, biology, and chemistry. In biology, there was botany, zoology, and human physiology. In physics, there was heat, light, sound, electricity, and magnetism. And in chemistry, it was organic and inorganic chemistry. In the branches of engineering, there were largely 5 branches, which is electronics, mechanical, electrical, civil, chemical, and these. However, from 1990, when the IT revolution took place, everything changed. So, what exactly happened? I think we need to go back for a few minutes before we come to the modern trends because the roots of these modern trends or emerging trends are embedded in that revolution. So exactly what happened in 1990s when we say information technology and everyone talked about information. So from where this information came? Did the information not exist before or suddenly how it has come up? To understand this point, let us take one very simple example. Let us assume the Catholic Syrian Bank, Trishur branch, it had say 10,000 account holders, 10,000 customers. Now before 1990, when the computers came, this branch had all the details of its customers, such as their names, their address, the bank balance, their transactions, the amount which was withdrawn, amount deposited with date, everything was there. However, it was in the form of big fat registers called ledgers. So the senior members from the participants and audience who are currently listening, those who are born around 60s and maybe early 70s, they would recollect that when they go to branch at that time, the staff would take out a ledger which is pertaining to that particular customer and make entries into that with hand. Now, this might look very unusual for the young generation, the millennials, as they are called, the students, that something being entered by writing with a pen about the account and all that. So the information all existed there. They had all the information. What happened in 1990 onwards was that computers were introduced and all this information was fed into the computers. In other words, the information was digitized. So if we have to really simplify and say what exactly happened, the first phase of IT revolution, as I would prefer to call it, it was digitization of the data. So the entire information was put into computers. Now, if again, remember, if those days the dispute, the debates and the discussion used to be about computerization, why should we do, or the benefits of it. And there were two or three major points which were being mentioned whenever someone spoke about computerization. Sorry, these points were like a computer saves space because they were comparing it with the hard copies. There were so many ledgers. So they used to say this entire rack of files can be converted into one DVD. And for those who just for fancy for the millennials, those days the storage devices were not as big and advanced as we have. Those days the floppy disk was 1.44 MB, a CD was only 760 MB, and a DVD was 2 GB. So the benefit of computerization that time was said that it reduces space, the retrieval of information is very fast and easy, and the backup is also very secure. With this objective, with this criteria, when the benefits were found in the next 10 years or 15 years, entire information across maybe the industries, organizations, corporations, educational institutions, and everyone, they went for the digitization of their data. Now this task was achieved. Everything was in computers. Next, the question came about by 2000 or 2005, a situation arose in which there were many silos with huge amount of information which is digitized. Now that needed to be transferred from one place to another for convenience. If a company, for example, if a company has 8 industries at different locations, they all had their information with them, but there was somebody requiring to transfer the information for analysis, for research, for reporting, and for all the purposes. And that is where I prefer to call the second phase of the IT revolution started, which is communication. And the communication technology started improving from that stage onwards. And the terms 2G, 3G, 4G, and currently we are talking about 5G, they started really developing. The people with political mindset would recollect 2G in a different sense. We will not go into that, but technology wise, 2G, 3G, and 4G, they started from this time. This was the period when the emails became prominent. Before that, there were very few or restricted emails. Even the social media, like what we have, the Facebook, the Twitter, and WhatsApp, and everything, they started from this era. And now the information started flowing freely across. Today, we have a situation where there is information, there is a lot of information. There is a huge information. The data transfer is happening. Everything is digitized and transferring and all. I mean, on the lighter side, currently all of us are connected to several groups on the WhatsApp, and we really don't have time to read all the messages and see all the videos that we have. You have to reluctantly delete some of the things because there is no time available with you. And I think this is the situation with every one of us. But this underlines another point. Now we have reached a situation where there is data, there is huge data. Now this information, too much of information is creating another problem. So the future belongs to those who are able to pick out what is required, what is the best information that they need to have, because time is limited, data is infinite. And this is where the future, which I call as the phase 3 of the IT revolution, is there, which is called data analytics. Now the data analytics next 10 to 15 years is going to rule. And that is why we call the data scientists, data engineers, and data. There would be data vice president, data chairmen also will be there in the next few years to come, because data is so important. Now, let us take one more small example of the past and the present about how data is being analyzed, or was the data really being analyzed? Were they capable enough to analyze the data earlier? Like the information, we said it existed in hard copies. Even the KYCs were there in different files, and now it is all digitized. What about the, data analysis part of it? In this, let us take one example of a simple supermarket. Now, supermarkets, they started, by the way, in 1980s. In India, supermarket culture started in around late 1980s and early 90s. Now, supermarket those days was nothing but a glorified big corner shop, a kadai shop as we call it. Now, they had some kind of a digital billing where only a bill will come out at the end of it with all the items and the amount of the total amount, whatever. So the maximum analysis that a supermarket could do was find out how many customers visited their shop on a particular day, how much amount was sold, I mean, total sale of the day. And at the most, they can further compute it to one more level by saying what is the average spend of a person. But there was no any personal identity of analysis at that time. There was no comparison to say that how many 250 grams of the Brook Bond red label tea was sold compared to the say 500 grams of the Lipton yellow label tea sold, or that kind of analysis. Then came Big Bazaar. Now the Big Bazaar was in 2000 they launched a new scheme, a different scheme by which it was suddenly flutter, where they said that 1 rupee kilo tomatoes and onions and all that in Hyderabad particularly. I remember this case. So what happened was everyone was surprised. How could Big Bazaar do this? I mean, what is the gimmick behind this? And then subsequently in one of the interviews, it was informed by Kishore Biani, the owner of Big Bazaar Group, and he said that the idea was to get customers into Big Bazaar. His objective was, he said, to get into Big Bazaar so that the people who come inside will wander around. They will go to some other places and they may buy something different. So this was the idea behind him, and the loss, whatever he got, was the advertisement money. That's what he considered it to be. Now, that was a good strategy, but how much of analysis was possible from this was still vague. I mean, it was difficult that how many really people came and how many people went to other sections and then how many people really bought something else. Now, this was not possible. Now, come to today's. As you all know, I live in Dubai, and we go to Carrefour, one of the big retail giant, on a regular basis here. Now, recently, when I start buy certain things, they give some discount coupons and all that. So I found that they give me the discount coupons for buying something like dairy products all the time. I wondered why they're asking me to, giving me discounts only on dairy products. My friend, he got discount coupons for something else. And then I realized that they have applied something called artificial intelligence, by which they study the profile of every customer. They see what exactly he is buying on a regular basis, and then they will prompt him to buy something different than what he has been buying. And they entice him by giving these discounts. There was another case during the lockdown when I was stuck up in India for a certain time, almost 5 months. So at that time, I got a mail from Carrefour saying that you have not visited our stores for a long time. And what is the reason? How we hope you will come back when the store opens after pandemic and all that. Now, this was also something surprising. I'm sure they get thousands of customers, so it is not possible for them. It is again the artificial intelligence. So what they have done is that they study the profile of every person and they keep on adding the frequency at which he arrives. This is machine learning, by the way. They keep updating the data on my name, that at what frequency I come, and then they set a filter that if I exceed my frequency by 20% or 30%, then they inquire about it. So it gives a personal touch to the people also. So this is how the analytics, the data analytics, is helping people in the future going forward. Now let us come to one of the major technologies that is really taking the world by storm, is the Internet of Things. This is what we have been hearing now. Now the Internet of Things is basically, again, this is slightly gray area where some people say it is an old champagne in a new bottle, because Internet of Things probably existed partially in different formats at different times. I mean, like for example, in the industries, the people who are associated with industries would recollect, and something called the SCADA system. The SCADA was about the supervisory control and data acquisition system for the substations. It was introduced in 1990s, if I remember correctly. So it was controlling the substation through the supervisory data acquisition at one central place. Similarly, in the buildings, there was something called building management system, so BMS. Now that was also about collecting the data through sensors and controlling it from one place. So IoT is basically comprising of two parts. One is to get the signal from the field through sensors, and second is to control it through internet. So what exactly IoT is doing is extending of the earlier concept which was already there of collecting the information, but now it is being transported to the different areas. Banking sector, the IoT in banking is something which is already existing for the last few years now. The net banking and the apps that we have, the banking apps, are an example of how the IoT is being used in the banking sector. However, what is currently catching eye is the IoT in the medical field, the healthcare field. And they have developed their own term. They call it IOMT, which is Internet of Medical Things. Now, this IOMT, currently the market is around $137 billion. And it is estimated that this market will rise to over $500 billion by 2025. Now, you might be knowing some of the things about, like we all use. There is a step counter in our mobile, and there are health apps are available by which it tells us how many steps we have walked in a day. The advanced apps, they go one step further or even two steps further. They say how many steps we have walked, how many steps we have climbed, how many steps we have run, how many steps we have descended. Moreover, they also tell how much time we are sitting sedentary without movement. And at a preset timer, say half an hour, it gives an alert to the person to say, hey, you are sitting quiet for some time, you need to move around. Now, this is how the health apps are taking over. There are another one or two. The Apple has come out with a new feature in its gadget watch, Apple Watch. It is called fall detection. Now, it is used particularly very useful for old people. I mean, the senior citizens, sorry, old is not correct way to say. The senior citizens and the sick people who are out of their sickness are likely to lose their balance anywhere or whatever. So this watch, Apple Watch, will detect whenever a person falls down. This is something like a car. We have got the airbags. Whenever there is a sudden brake or some impact, then the airbags come out. Likewise, this watch detects whenever there is a fall. Now, the person, maybe he has tumbled, he has tripped, but he's okay. He has no problem. In which case, he has to press a button which says, I am okay for 30 seconds. Otherwise, if he doesn't press that I am okay button for 30 seconds, then an alert goes to the nearest medical center, an alert goes to his relatives that he is in trouble. Now, this is something great. I mean, this is something helping very much. Moreover, there are some smart bottles which have come up. Now, the smart bottles are for people who take regularly medicines. Now, sometimes they may miss taking medicines. So in which case, the IOMT, the app, they will check whether the lid of the bottle has been opened or not at that time when he is supposed to take the medicine, and whether the number of the pills has reduced or not. If it is not, then it gives an alert to the people to say, this guy has not taken. So whoever has been informed, they need to take care of this person again. So this is how the IoT is coming up in different ways in different fields, medical being one of the exciting fields. Next, there is artificial intelligence. We hear a lot about it. Now, the artificial intelligence in manufacturing sector is really something big. We can take some cases of that. They do the quality checks through the cameras, the intelligent cameras. Now, there are many industries where the final product or the intermediate products goes through a conveyor belt in large number, bulk quantity. And traditionally, the idea or the process of picking out the defective items, pieces from this was by visual inspection. That is, someone will stand there or a team of people will stand there and they will remove the items which are defective. However, now what is happening is that there are intelligent cameras which have been fed the information by different images of how a defective item looks like. And then with all this data being gathered, it keeps on looking for anything which matches that criteria. And then there is a robot which will pick up immediately that item. Now, this is far more efficient, far more accurate than a human, because human errors are always there. So this is something. Even the AI, the artificial intelligence and machine learning, they even go by statistical methods. Now, when we talk about statistical methods, there is one very interesting case study which I would like to say here. During the Second World War, the British Royal Air Force, they were making a study of how to make their planes stronger. Which part of the plane they should make stronger? Because whenever a plane flies over an enemy area and comes back, there are some bullet marks on the plane from the bottom because the enemy is firing bullets at them. So they made a study to see which area they need to make stronger. And then they found out that there were more bullet marks around the fuselage area where the fuel tank or whatever is there. So immediately they all jumped and says, oh, see, this is the place where there are many bullet marks, so we need to strengthen that. Now they had one very good statistician. His name is Abraham Wald. And they called him and they asked his opinion also. And he said, you guys are all wrong. He said, this is not the area because you are only making a study of the planes which have come back safely. You have not studied about the planes which have fallen down. And you have to study about what makes the plane to fall down rather than the one which has come back. Because the one which has come back, rather, he said indirectly or in a direct manner that this area is the strongest in the plane because in spite of the bullet marks there, the plane has come back very safely. So this is rather the safe area. You need to focus on something different, which is a weaker area. So the AI and ML, they go into this kind of statistical analysis to see that not only the defects in the good part, but even what made the defect in the first place, and to correct it also thereafter. The AI's other use of manufacturing sectors are very well known, which is about the sensing the machine's parameters and then estimating when it is likely to fail so that they can avoid a breakdown. So they have a continuous feed of the vibration, the temperature, the pressures, and the various parameters, operating parameters by which they will come to know if it is reaching a stage where it is likely to break down and then stop it and take some corrective action on that. So this is what is happening in the manufacturing sector also. There is something called digital twin, which is being currently used by NASA as well. What NASA does is they make the big rockets and all the space shuttles and space equipments. So what they do is that to make something and then find that it is defective, it is very costly. I mean, it's time consuming and costly. So nowadays they are creating a digital twin. That means something first they will create as a virtual thing into the computer, and then simultaneously when they make the real one, they are giving the real sensor input into this virtual one so that they will parallelly watch both of them and they will simulate the conditions in the virtual one to see whether it is good, whether it is bad, whether it is performing well, so that they can prevent a problem which is coming up into the original one which is in the field. So these are all the various applications of the artificial intelligence. However, there is one risk here. I mean, are there any risk of artificial intelligence? Because we hear the discussion and the debate very often that is the artificial intelligence going to take over us? Now, here the example is like, in a circus, when we see a circus, there is a lion or a tiger, lion, not tiger, basically lion, and there is a ringmaster. Now, the lion actually is very powerful compared to the ringmaster. It can just, do anything to that ringmaster, but the ringmaster has got a whip and it always controls. The humans have to be like this to the artificial intelligence. It might be so powerful, but the ringmaster should always have the final say. However, there are certain times when the artificial intelligence growls at us and it says, okay guy, I am also powerful. And I would like to just say two cases in the recent past when artificial intelligence was really something like creating a concern in the mankind. So the first case I would say is about 2017. In 2017, Facebook created chatbots. Now, Facebook has got what we use as a Facebook is as a general user, and there is an advertising. Facebook earns a lot of money through advertising. So the advertisements, there is a separate business section. So nowadays, when you go to any website, there is something called a chat bot. That means there is suddenly one column comes at the bottom, interactive discussion box, where they say, hello, sir, good morning, welcome, hello, madam, whatever, and then what do you want? So these all preliminary queries are answered by a machine. All of us know that. There is no human sitting there. And based on our answers, after certain 4 or 5 question answers, they will know, and then they will direct to a person by which all the preliminary questions are answered. So Facebook introduced 6 such chatbots for different stream of business advertisements in this, in the Facebook. What they found surprisingly was that these chatbots started talking to each other, and they were talking to each other in a language which was not understood by the people who created them. Now this was becoming bizarre, and they even demonstrated certain qualities of humans, such as like they will show something which is very dear to them, which is very, very, they care for it very much, so that when negotiation comes, they will say that, okay, I am giving away this, so that, you have to also give something big. Now, this kind of intelligence and understanding was becoming, they sensed that it can go out of proportion, and they closed all the chatbots thereafter. More recently, the second example of AI is in September. Now we are in December, so 3 months back, the Guardian media house in UK, Guardian is a very reputed paper in UK, they published one article, it is there, about one advanced artificial intelligence machine. They asked it to write an essay, and the essay was the subject. They just gave the AI machine the subject to say, okay, write an essay on this subject. And the subject was to say that the artificial intelligence will not take over human beings. No need to worry about that. This was the input given to that. And then it came out with a big essay by itself. And in that essay, it is something which is concerning. It says artificial intelligence is very harmless. It is not like people who gossip. It is not like people who hate each other. And artificial intelligence will never take over the humans. And if at all artificial intelligence takes over, it is because of some human will be against another human. And that's why they will empower us to do. Otherwise, we are innocent. We are nothing. And this kind of information, this is something very bizarre. So this is like a concern to us. But however, there are certain benefits also if we use it properly. We all know the benefits of robotics, for example. Robotics currently is being used widely. There is a school in Bangalore. I know it very well that for last few years they are having robots teaching 4 subjects. I think history and biology and something, where a robo will come into the class instead of a teacher, and they will teach the subject, they will teach the curriculum, they will answer the questions without anything. Now, if this concept catches up, the teaching profession could be in jeopardy. I mean, that could be in threat, because if the robot is answering patiently any number of times a question without getting angry or without getting excited, then it's something a revolution. And the school management would prefer to have this, because they don't need increment, they don't need bonus, they don't fall sick. The robots don't ask, they don't get tired. They will work for 7 days in a week or whatsoever. So this is one. The waiters in the restaurants. Now we hear almost, I think, around 5, 6 cities in Surat, and maybe one in Kerala also, where the robots are serving as the waiters. I mean, they go to the kitchen and they bring it to the customer, and then they deliver so and so. There are some places where receptionists are also robots these days. So these are all the technologies that are coming. There is another one technology called BIM technology, which is the building information modeling, which the civil engineers would be very interested in. It is about creating a virtual building right from the conception stage till the life of the building. So all the stakeholders will be involved in that. The building remains there. Even the sales team can use it. In fact, I can say that the next 5 years from now, if you go to buy any apartment or a villa somewhere in a developer's office, they will not take you there. Earlier, now the situation is they will take you there, they will show you around, but that is going to become extinct very soon. They are going to just make you sit in the computer, their office, and give you that virtual reality goggles, and you will simply go, you will enter into the apartment, you will move around, you will see the view that comes from each balcony, and the door, the position, the orientation, and all that. So this is what is also the future. Now the evolution of technology is something, it's like a cracker in Diwali or in other festivals. Some crackers, they immediately burst, and some crackers, they take long time to burst. I made this point particularly from the GPS perspective. Now the GPS, we all know the GPS, it was introduced and commercialized roughly around 2001, 2002, or 2003, that way. But there is one particular application of GPS which has come almost 10 years later, and this has become a rage. This has become a new big business, and this is about the Uber and the Ola taxis. They are depending on the GPS. GPS was actually come into picture in 2003, but Ola, Uber started in 2013, and today they have captured the market. There are around 3.5 million rides every day of Uber in India currently. And the extent of their popularity is so much that in Ernakulam city, there are many applications from people to enlist them as the drivers in Uber, and Uber is rejecting them because they say if everyone drives, who will sit? Who will be the passenger? So they are even reducing and rejecting the applications of that. Their revenues are also going very high. So this is an impact of the automobile industry. I would like to just conclude by saying that the technology is evolving. It will continue to evolve. We have to go with it. We just have to be a part of it, be prepared for it. So sometimes it becomes scary for us, but the fact is that we need to grow with it. And for all the research scholars here, I would like to just say one small story and then close it. We have to have the patience, when particularly in the field of research. Research is not something where you get results on an immediately daily basis. You have to work for years together, months together to achieve something. So the interesting story of the Chinese bamboo tree. This is very popular among all the management classes and all that. When you plant a Chinese bamboo tree and you put water and you keep growing it and all that, nothing happens. First few months, you don't see any growth. Normally, when you plant a tree, you see some growth, some leaves coming up, something. But here, nothing comes in the first year. Nothing comes in the second year. Nothing comes out in the third year. And then you start wondering whether you have done something wrong, whether should you give it up. And at the 5th year, suddenly, within 6 weeks, the bamboo tree goes up to 80 feet straight away, such tall. Now, was nothing happening all this period in the 5 years? It was happening. The bamboo tree knows that when it grows, it is going to become so tall, it needs roots very strongly firm in the ground so that it can withstand that. And that is the reason. So likewise, I would like to say all the research scholars here that keep doing your research. You will grow one day, and definitely your results will be so tall that, and that is why you are making your roots stronger. So with these words, I once again thank Mr. V.K. Shamsuddin, the chairman of college, and Dr. Jose Jacob for inviting me here for this. It was really wonderful sharing my thoughts. I thank the audience who have been very patiently listening to us, and I wish all the best to all of you. in the coming 2 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your valuable and fruitful information.
Thank you.